Hello everyone, welcome to the video series on Scratch. In this video we will create a few fun and exciting games. Let's start by first deleting the default sprite. Next we'll be adding another sprite by clicking on choose a sprite icon. So we'll be selecting the neon tunnel backdrop for our project. Next, let's edit this backdrop. That is, let's add some text to this backdrop by clicking on the backdrop, selecting the backdrop, going to the backdrops tab, and then just use the text tool to add the text I want. Using the select tool, select the text and just enlarge it or make it bigger. Now select a color. You can also keep the same color, but I'll be keeping this a different color so that it is more visible on the screen. So now we are done with adding our backdrops and sprites. Now let's see what we will be coding for our game. Now we want our game to function like this, that when the user or the player clicks on this sprite, the score should increase by 1. At the beginning of the game, the score will be 0, the backdrop will be forest backdrop, and the sprite will be set at a start position and hidden for a few seconds. Next, when the user clicks on this, the score should increase by 1. Here in our game, we'll also be adding a condition wherein if the score is 3, then the user is declared the winner by switching to the backdrop I1 backdrop. So let's see how we can do that. Now we want our game to start when the green flag is clicked. For that, go to the events menu and select the when green flag clicked block. Next, let's set the start position of this frog sprite. Let's rename this wizard toad to frog. You can keep the name as is. Now just drag this frog to a start position. Like, where do you want your sprite frog to appear when the game starts? I want my sprite to appear somewhere here on the stage. So we have done that. Let's click on when green flag clicked block, then go to the motion menu and select the go to XY block. As you can see, the coordinates are already what we have set as the start position, so you don't need to set it again. Now, after setting the start position of the frog sprite, we want our backdrop to be forest when the game starts. So go to the looks menu and select the switch backdrop to block. From the drop down, select forest. Next, we always want our sprite to be at the front. Suppose in the future, if we decide to add more sprites to our project and if they overlap, we want this current sprite to always be at the front. So for that, we will select the go to front layer block from the looks menu. Now, as I said, we will be having a score for this game, where the score variable will store the number of times the user has clicked on this sprite. So for that, we'll go to the variables menu and first make a score variable. Now you can see that your score variable is shown here. In case, and it is already checked, and because of that you can see it is also showing here on the stage. In case your score variable is not checked, then you will not be able to see the score here on the stage. So make sure that it is always checked. Next, we will set our score at the beginning of the game to 0. Like whenever the game starts, the score will be 0. So for that, select set my variable to 0 block, and from the drop down select the score variable. Now we want our game to run continuously till the user wins. When the user wins, the game will be stopped, but till then the game should run continuously. So for that we will be using the forever block from the control menu. Now, as I said, we want the frog or the sprite used to appear on the stage after some seconds after the game has started. So for that we will be using the wait 1 seconds block. Then we will show our sprite after 1 second on the stage. So for that, from the looks menu select the show block. Next, we want, after the sprite is shown on the stage at the starting position, we want the sprite to start jumping at random positions. So for that we will be using the go to random position block from the motion menu. And after a wait of some seconds, we will change the costume. So for that, go to the looks menu and select the next costume block. The costumes of this frog sprite are frog is standing at one position, and the second costume is the frog jumping. So since we want to show a jumping animation, we will be showing using this next costume block, so that we can show that the frog is jumping from one position to a random position on the screen. So let's test this code that we have done till here. Just click on the go button and you can see our score is 0. The frog is jumping at random positions and the backdrop is set to forest. Let's stop this here. Now when the user clicks on this sprite, the score should increase by 1, and the frog sprite on which we clicked should disappear from the stage. So let's code this. So from events we will select the when this sprite clicked block. Then next we will select the start sound croak. Like I want to make this sprite, make this game more interesting. I want this sprite to I want this frog to croak every time I click on it. So for that, go to the sound menu and select the start sound croak block. Next, as I said, we will increase the score variable by 1 when we click on it. So from the variables menu, select the change my variable by 1 block, and from the drop down select score. And next we want to hide our sprite after we have clicked on it. So from the looks, select hide block. Now as I mentioned, we will also be checking a condition. That condition is that if the score is 3, then the user or the player will be declared the winner and the backdrop will be switched to the neon tunnel backdrop. That is where we are displaying the I won message. So, but before displaying the backdrop, we will be to change the backdrop, we will be broadcasting a message when this score is equal to 3. So go to the control menu and select the if then block. Next, from the operators menu, select the equal to block, equal to 50 block, and here you can see instead of typing numbers you can add variables as well. Currently the value of this variable, if you click on it and see, is 0. So that means when I place this inside here, the value is 0 equal to 50. So, and place this whole set of block here. So as and when this score increases, the value here will be changing, and if it equal to 3, which is what we want, if the score is equal to 3, then we will broadcast a message which will say I won. So go to the events menu and select the broadcast message 1 block. Then we will create a new message by clicking on the drop down and selecting the new message option. Type in as 1. When the 1 message is broadcasted, the sprite will hide and the backdrop will be switched to the next backdrop. So for doing that, first we will have to hide this. So let's see how we can do that. We will see from the events menu, we will take the when I receive message 1 block, and from the drop down we'll select the 1. So when this 1 message is broadcasted, and then we want the sprite to hide. So from the looks menu, select the hide block, and from the controls menu we will select the stop all block, which will stop all the code running, all the scripts running for this game. That is, the game will be over, so we'll stop all the scripts running for this game. So let's test what we have done till now. When I click on the green flag, the game will start and the frog starts moving to random positions. I will click on this and my score is increasing by 1. Now my score has increased, score is 3, but we haven't yet coded the script for how to change the backdrop. So for that, click on to write the script of changing the backdrop. Click on the backdrops option below the stage, and you will see that here the image has been popped. Now next what we will be doing is, when I receive the 1 message, or when the 1 message is broadcasted, this backdrop, current backdrop forest, should switch to another backdrop. So from the events menu we will select the when I receive 1 block, and from the looks menu we will select switch backdrop to neon tunnel, and we will also play a sound when the neon tunnel backdrop appears. We will play some happy sound, like you know how you when you win a game your friends cheer you. So we will add a sound like that by going to the sounds menu and clicking on choose a sound icon. Next, let's search for some clapping sounds. Yes. So we'll select this sound and add it to our project. Next, go back to the codes tab, and from the sound menu select the start sound clapping block. So now whenever this backdrop switches to this neon tunnel backdrop, and the player has won the game, the clapping sound will play. Let's test our game. Now let's make a game a little bit more interesting by adding more sprites. So to do that, To add other sprites to your game, there is another method. You can directly click on this frog sprite and right click on it. Next, select the duplicate option. You can see a different sprite named as frog2 has been generated. Now let's change the costume. Go to the costumes tab and change the look of this frog2 sprite. With the frog2 already selected, click on the costumes tab. Here we will be just changing the color of the clothes of this sprite. So suppose it's yellow, or we can take red as the fill color. Click on the fill tool and then just select the clothes and give it a red color. Select the second costume and do the same. So now we have changed the color of this sprite. Let's add another one in the same way. Click on the frog sprite and click on duplicate. As you may have noticed, when you duplicated the frog sprite, the code also got duplicated along with it. So this is another way Scratch provides to save your time when you have same code running for all the sprites. You can just duplicate it. Select the frog 3 and rename it to something as butterfly. Next, go to the costumes tab and delete the costume of this. Every sprite should have at least one costume. You can't delete all the costumes for a sprite. But here we don't want this toad to be there. We want a butterfly to be a third sprite. So for that, go to choose a costume, and from the costumes library you can just type in directly in the search box as butterfly. We will select the butterfly 1A costume for our project. Now you can see you have been provided with a bin icon to delete this. So we will delete this costume as we won't be using it. Let's go back to the code tab and you can see you have 3 different sprites. Also, the code for this butterfly is already duplicated from the frog sprite. So now we have added 3 sprites to our game. Now for the frog sprite, I had said that this frog sprite should appear after a wait of 1 second when the game starts. Let's change the waiting times for these 2 sprites. So for that, select the frog 2 and say I want this frog 2 sprite to appear a bit quicker than the frog sprite. So I'll put it as 0.5. Next, the butterfly sprite should appear after say 2 seconds. So I'll just put this as value 2. You can try out other values as well. Now let's give the butterfly sprite a different sound. You can also add multiple sounds to your project. So for that, go to the sounds tab, click on choose a sound icon, and from the animals category, let's see a sound that will fit the butterfly. For now, let's just take a random sound like the chirp and add it to our project. Next, go to the code tab and select the chirp sound from the drop down. Now let's play our project in full screen. Yay! We won the game. So this is how your project will work. In the Catch Me If You Can project, we saw how to move sprites using the mouse. In this project or game, we will see how we can move sprites using the keys on our keyboard. So, the project or game we'll be creating now is called as Yummy Strawberries. First, let's start by designing this game. To do that, we'll delete the default Sprite 1. Now, go to the Choose a Sprite icon and it will direct you to the Sprites library. From this library, we will be selecting a sprite called as Penguin. Now, let's take a moment and observe the costumes of this penguin sprite. The penguin sprite has 4 costumes. We'll be using costume 3, that is Penguin 2C, and costume 4, that is the Penguin 2D. Since we are not using the costume 1 and 2, we'll be deleting those. So now we have 2 costumes in our costumes list. Select the costume Penguin 2D and let's make some changes to this. Using the select tool, we will select this whole penguin costume and we will flip it in this direction. Currently it is facing towards the right. We will face it towards the left using the flip horizontal tool. Now let's come back to the code tab. We will also add a backdrop to give a scenery to the game. To do that, go to the Choose a Backdrop, which will direct you to the backdrop library. From here, let's select a very cool backdrop. We can select, we will select the winter backdrop. So this is how a game would look like. We have to still make some more designing for this game. So now what will happen in this Yummy Strawberries game is that there will be a S-shaped tunnel through which the penguin will pass. That is, we will move the penguin using the keyboard arrow keys through the tunnel to its sprite. So we have 2 more changes or designings to do. One is we will edit the backdrop to add a tunnel to it. The penguin will move through this tunnel using the keyboard keys to its prize. So to edit the backdrop, click on the stage and go to the backdrops tab. Here you will see the backdrop you have added. To draw this tunnel, we will be using 2 tools, that is the circle tool and the line tool. First, click on the circle tool and we will draw a circle with no fill. So we will select this and with a black border of the circle. Again, draw another circle. Then we will connect these 2 circles using the line tool. So you can see this circle, this structure is resembling like a pipe, which is exactly how we want it. So now again select the circle tool and we will continue with drawing the tunnel. So we have to add 2 more shapes one is again one horizontal vertical pipe and a horizontal pipe to this tunnel to complete it. Next we will draw a final pipe here and we will connect these two circles with this line tool. So this is how our tunnel will look like. Now let's go back to the code tab. As I said, we have to add another sprite which will act as a price for the penguin when it comes out of the tunnel. So for that, go to the sprite library and let's go to the food section and select the strawberry sprite. So now we have added all the elements to our game. Let's edit these elements to make it suitable for our game. So select the penguin, and since we want this penguin to move through the tunnel, let's see what size will work here. So if I select 30, okay, 30 is very small, let's make it 40. Yes, this looks good enough that it is visible on the stage and also moves through this tunnel. So this is how the penguin will move through the tunnel using the keys on the keyboard, arrow keys on the keyboard. Next, select the strawberry sprite and also reset the size to 40 and position it here. The position, these are the start positions of the sprites when the game starts. Now let's code these elements. When we click on this green flag, we want our game to start and these sprites to appear at this position. So first we will start with coding the penguin sprite. When the game starts, that is when the green flag is clicked, I will want the following set of instructions to be performed. So first I will set the start position of the penguin sprite. This is done by go to XY block. This is the current position of the penguin. You can see here this X and Y values, which is already here, so you don't need to type it. Setting the start position means that whenever, suppose if you are somewhere here, but when you click on the green flag, your penguin will always return to this position. So suppose if you end your game at this position suddenly, then again when you start your game, you will see that the penguin will appear at this position. Next, we will be setting the size of this penguin so that it always appears in this size when the game starts. So go to the looks menu and select the set size to 100 block. Let's set it to the current size, that is 40, which works for our game. We will also select or set this costume as the costume in which the penguin should appear every time the game begins. So again from the looks menu, just select the switch costume to block and from the drop down select penguin to C. So here we have set the start look of a sprite, penguin. Now we want the code for the penguin to go on running till we don't manually stop the game by pressing the stop button or till the penguin reaches the strawberry. So to do that, we will go to the controls menu and select the forever block. In this forever block, we will code the penguin to move when we press the arrow keys on the keyboard. To check which arrow key is pressed on the keyboard, we will be using the if condition. Like suppose if the up arrow key is pressed on the keyboard, then we want the penguin to move upwards. If the left arrow key is pressed on the keyboard, then the penguin will switch its costume and move in the left direction. That is, it will face this direction and then start moving in it. If the right arrow key is pressed, then the penguin will look in this direction and start moving in this direction. If the down arrow key is pressed, then it will start moving downwards. So for this, to check all these conditions, we will be using the if then block. So select the if then block from the controls menu, and here to detect which key is pressed on the keyboard, we will go to the sensing menu and select the key space pressed block. Instead of space, if you want to select a key, any other key, click on the drop down and you will see all the options provided here. Since here we will be using the arrow keys on the keyboard to move our penguin, we will use these 4 keys. So first we will check if the up arrow key has been pressed or not. If the up arrow key is pressed, we will place this block here. Now if the up arrow key is pressed on the keyboard, then this penguin will move upwards. That is, the Y position of the penguin is changing. So we will go to the motion menu and select the change Y by 10 block. Let's duplicate this block and code for what should happen when the down arrow key is pressed on the keyboard. So from the drop down, select down arrow. When the penguin is moving downwards, or when we want to move the penguin downwards, we will press the down arrow key. To move the penguin downwards, the Y value should be negative. Remember the XY grid we learned in the previous video. So the value of this will be -10. Next, let's code what should happen when we press the left arrow key and the right arrow key. Go to the controls menu and select the if then block. Then from the sensing menu, select the key space pressed block. From the drop down, select the left arrow key. When you press the left arrow, as I said, the penguin should change its costume and start moving in the left direction. So to do that, go to the motion menu and select the change X by 10 block. And as you remember from the XY grid, when the sprite is moving in the left direction, that is in this direction, then the values are negative. So we'll put here negative. Then we want to change the costume of the sprite so that it is facing in the left direction. To do that, go to the switch looks menu and select the switch costume to block. Here it is already penguin 2D. Now again duplicate this set of blocks and place it below this if then block. Now we will code for what should happen when the right arrow key is pressed. When the penguin is moving in this direction, the values will be positive. And also, since we want it to face in this direction, we will change the costume to penguin 2C. So these are all the conditions for moving the penguin when we press an arrow key on the keyboard. Now, let's specify a condition on what should happen when the penguin reaches the strawberry sprite. So, to do that, go to the control menu and select the if then block again. When the penguin reaches the strawberry sprite or touches this strawberry sprite, I want it to say yummy strawberry. So, go to the sensing menu and we will use the touching mouse pointer block. Click on the drop down and select strawberry. If the penguin is touching the strawberry sprite, then we will make the penguin say yummy strawberry for some seconds. Go to the looks menu and select say hello for 2 seconds block. Then instead of hello, type as yummy strawberry. So this is our code for the penguin sprite. Let's write a script for the strawberry sprite. For the strawberry sprite, we have to only set its looks, that is the size, and its start position when the game starts. So our game will start when we click the green flag. Next, let's set the start position by using the go to XY block. You don't need to change the coordinates here as these are same as this where we have positioned our strawberry sprite. Next, go to the looks menu and select the set size to 100% block and change 100 to 40. So now every time our game will start, this will be the size and the position at which the strawberry sprite will be placed. Now let's make this in full screen and play our game. When I press the right arrow key, the penguin is moving in the forward direction, then up arrow key and it moves upwards. Now when I press the left arrow key, the penguin will change its costume and start moving in this direction. Then go up, and when I press the right arrow key, it will change its costume again and start moving here. And you see, when it reached the strawberry, it said yummy strawberry. Let's stop our game. And so this is it for our yummy strawberries project. So you have seen here how you can code your sprite to move when a keyboard key is pressed. Remember to always save your project to your computer. Let's save this project to our computer by going to the file menu and clicking on the save to your computer option. I will name my game as Yummy Strawberry and click on OK. Let's create a new fun project called as the Jumping Chick. In this project, we will again use the keyboard events, that is whenever you press a key on the keyboard, your sprite should make some movement on the stage. So in this game, that is the Jumping Chick, we'll start by first designing the layout for the game. First, delete this default sprite as we don't need it in our game. Next, go to the choose a sprite icon and click on it, and it will direct you to the sprite library. Since we want to add a chick sprite as our name of the game suggests, we will go directly to the animals category. And you can see Scratch provides various animal sprites to use in your project. But we will be selecting the chick sprite, so come to the chick sprite and click on it and it will be added to your project. Let's add a backdrop to our project to make it look a bit more beautiful. So go to the choose a backdrop icon and click on it. From this backdrop gallery, we will be selecting a backdrop called the blue sky backdrop. So this is our designing for now for the game. Let's make an animation where this chick sprite is doing a jumping motion when we press the spacebar key. So to do that, first we'll go to the events menu and select the when space key pressed block. The instructions below this block will be run when you press the space key on your spacebar key on the keyboard. So let's give instructions to the chick sprite. What we want to do is move this. When we press the spacebar key, the chick should go up and then again come down. That is, we want to animate the jumping motion. So this can be done by using the blocks from the motion menu. We will be using the change Y by 10 block. Remember the XY grid. When you want to make a sprite move up in the when you want a sprite to move upwards, then the values are positive. And when you want to make a sprite move downwards in the down direction, then your values should be negative. So we will be adding another change Y by 10 block and reducing it and just adding a minus sign here. If we run this block by using the spacebar key, you will see nothing is happening because we have just added this block, so there is no change in the position. So let's add a repeat block from the controls menu so that the jumping motion is noticeable. So after adding the set of blocks, if you press the spacebar key on your keyboard, then you can see the chick has made a jumping motion. Now let's say I want this chick sprite to appear at this position when the game starts. So in order to set the start position of the sprite when the game starts, we will be using some blocks. I want my game to start when I click on the go button or the green flag. So from the events menu, I will select the when green flag clicked block. Next, to set the start position, we will go to the motion menu and select the go to XY block. You can see these values should match with this value here. If they are not matching, then you will have to type these values here manually. Now, why do we set a start position? Is because suppose you end your game here, like when you end your game, the chick sprite is here somewhere. So what we want is whenever the game starts, it should always come to this position, no matter at which position the chick sprite is when your game ends. Now we added a jumping motion. We made the sprite do a jumping motion. Let's add some obstacle to our game, moving obstacle to our game, which this sprite will dodge by jumping. So to do that, go to the sprite library by clicking on choose a sprite icon, and from here we'll go to the food category and we will be using this egg sprite as our obstacle. Let's position this egg sprite on the stage to the very left. I want this sprite to move from this right side of the stage to the left side, and when this comes here, this sprite, chick sprite will jump. So I want to animate this egg sprite to move from right to left. So this should happen, this animation for the egg sprite should happen as soon as the game begins. That is when the green flag is clicked. So go to the events menu and select the when green flag clicked block. Next, I want to move this sprite here, from here till here. So first I will set the start position of this sprite, that is by going to the motion menu. From the motion menu we will select the go to XY block to set the start position of the egg sprite. So we want to start this egg sprite from 240. Let me set this value from here. So from here this egg sprite will start moving. I'll make the changes here as well. So this is how we set the start position. Next, this sprite should glide from here till here, that is to the left edge of this stage. So again from the motion menu, since we want it to glide, we will be using the glide 1 second to block. So since we want this to glide from here till here, we will be using this, turning this to -120, x to -240, and this, since it is 1 second, it will move very quickly, as you can see, which is not the speed that we want our egg sprite to move with. So I will reduce this to 1 to increase this 1 to 3. Now let's see how the animation is. But you can see this egg sprite is just coming here and stopping. We want this animation to be repeated again and again. So from the control menu, we'll go to the control menu and select the repeat 10 block. So now we can see that this sprite, once it reaches here, will keep on repeating the motion again and again. Now let's code for what should happen when the chick sprite is touching the egg sprite. When this chick sprite touches the egg sprite, we will stop the game and the costume for this egg should change. Also, if the chick sprite manages to successfully dodge this egg, then we will be adding a score variable where the successful attempts by the chick sprite to dodge the egg would be stored. So first see how we can code with to check whether the chick sprite is touching the egg sprite. For this, we will again go to the events menu and select the when green flag clicked block. This will keep on checking the conditions from when the game starts. So from that, the starting costume for the egg sprite will be this. Before we start coding, let's have a quick glance at all the costumes of the egg sprite. The egg sprite has a total of 6 costumes, from which we will be using only 2. So these are all the costumes. For our project, we will be using the egg A costume, which will be shown when the game starts, and the egg B costume, which will be shown when the chick sprite touches the egg. So let's start coding. So when the game starts, we want the egg A to be our starting costume. So select the switch costume block from the looks menu and from the drop down select egg A. Next, we will check the condition whether we will check if this chick sprite is touching the egg sprite. So to do that, we will go to the control menu and select the wait until block. From here, in this diamond slot, we will specify whether our condition. We have to check if the chick sprite is touching the egg sprite. So from the sensing menu, we will select the touching mouse pointer block and position it here. Then from this drop down, we will select the chick sprite. So if this chick sprite is touching the egg, then we want the costume for the egg sprite to be switched to egg B. So to change the costume, again from the looks menu, we will select the switch costume to block, and from here we will select the egg B costume. Now we will stop all the code for the project. That is, we will end the game by stopping all the code running for this game by using the stop all block from the control menu. Let's also add a sound to this chick sprite when it jumps. So for that, select the chick sprite and go to the sound menu and select the start sound chirp block. Now let's make this go into full screen mode and test our game. Click on the green flag and using the space bar, you can see my chick sprite has touched the egg, so the game has stopped. Let's play it again. You can see when I press the space bar, the chick is making a sound and it is easily dodging the eggs by which is coming its way. Now let's add a score to our game, which will help us keep a count of how many times the chick sprite has dodged the egg. To do that, first we will create a variable called as score by going to the variables menu, click on make a variable option, and here we will make a variable named score. Keep these options as is and click on OK. You can see a variable named score has been created here, and also it is visible here on the stage. By any chance, if this checkbox is not checked in your project, then this score variable will not be visible here. So make sure that it is always checked. Now let's set whenever a game starts, you can see the score for the game is always 0. So let's do this by using the set my variable to 0 block. Take the set my variable to 0 block and put it below this when green flag clicked block here. From the drop down, select score and you can see the block reads as set score to 0. That is, we are setting the start value for score as 0 when the game begins. Now, when the chick sprite successfully dodges the egg or this obstacle, then we want our score to increase by 1. So for that, select the change my variable by 1 block and from the drop down select score. Now every time the chick sprite dodges the egg successfully, the score will increase by 1. Let's play this game again in full screen and see. Click on the green flag. You can see our score has increased by 1, then 2. Oh, we touched the egg. See, our score is 4 before we before the chick sprite finally touch the egg. Thanks for watching this video. Continue watching for more such projects